Gareth A Davies, good morning to you. How you doing?
Morning, Jay. Good morning, Owen. Is that a bit of makeup under your left eye there, Owen?
That's it, just a bit of smudging.
Well spotted. Nobody else noticed that this morning on our live feed. Nobody has texted in just yet.
He should have swapped places today and then we wouldn't see it, but he's obviously getting well beaten up before Tony McGregor beats him up later on.
Oh, fighting talk from Gareth A Davies.
I've just tweeted, unfortunately for you, I'm getting in the McGregor camp in the new year.
Right, okay. What about you versus Gerard Gilroy, this fight that you
Nobody
guys
wants to see
chalked
that.
down a few weeks ago?
Nobody wants to see that.
Only in mixed martial arts.
I would love to see that.
I'm far too much of a coward. There you go. I'm happy to admit that.
Probably in completely different weight divisions as well. I mean, I'm 210. What are you?
I don't really. I'm 150, I think.
Okay, yeah, right. Well, I'd love to beat up a smaller guy. No, in all seriousness, I think it's for charity, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly will be. It'll be for a good cause.
Yeah.
And that good cause for most people will be
That's
seeing
great
me get
you're
into a pulpit, you know.
It's great you're doing it, Owen. It's a brilliant thing.
Thank you, Gareth.
Well, let's move on and talk about the fight at the weekend. So you were over in LA and kind of got an opportunity to see exactly what the pre-fight and post-fight, and we can talk about the fight itself, of course, as well. But what happened to Tyson Fury over the course of that week in terms of... So I listened to a lot of American sports podcasts, and this was not on their radar. Then they watched it and they were like, holy shit, I really want to see that again.
What, you mean in terms of a rematch, yeah?
Well, just generally the sense of like Tyson Fury suddenly catapulting himself into the consciousness of the casual American sports fan.
Without any doubt whatsoever. I myself thought that Wilder would win the fight, just simply because, as Andy Lee was saying there, I was sitting with Andy at the weigh-ins on the Friday. And we were all doing straw polls together about how we felt about it. And exactly what I felt, you had to concentrate for every minute of every round, or every second of every minute of every round, and pull off another Klitschko-esque performance to win the belt. I had the real privilege last week of being with Tyson's team for the whole of Monday. I was in his camp for the hour in his dressing room before he walked out, which was extraordinary. It was amazing to be in there. It's only dawning on me now, given what happened in the fight, what a great privilege it was, Jer, to be invited into his dressing room for an hour, you know? Whereas a couple of members of his team had said to me, do you want your name on the list to come in the dressing room, you know? Tyson doesn't mind you coming in there, yeah? Because I've grown quite close to him over the last 18 months. I went out to Marbella when he was 27 stone. I went running on the beach with him in my pinstripe trousers and my waistcoat. And we did 4 miles when he could run so slowly because of his weight that he could take mobile phone calls and text. But it was, and you know, I've had my own depression over the last few years as well. And I reached out to him on you know, kind of messages, DM'd him to say, look, if you ever want to talk, just ring me up. It's nothing to do with work, just ring me. Do you know what I mean? And I, like Andy, I've known Tyson probably about 12 years before he turned pro just, and then I've been through his whole career. So I know this is a long story for 1 week you're asking, but I think we need to learn in this world. Someone says something wrong, yeah, just not to go on one newspaper article or one kind of pronouncement of something that, you know, because it's not politically correct, everyone says this guy's this and this guy's this. I have not experienced bad things around Tyson Fury. I'm serious. I spent a lot of time around him. He's a very interesting man, and he showed himself last week, to answer your question, to be a quite extraordinary human being. He's not only did I think Deontay Wilder would get to him because he's lost so much weight. He's come back from depression. I feared he'd be vulnerable. Watching him in that last hour before he came out, we were listening to Chris Stapleton, you know, What Are You Listening To? Beautiful country western song. It was so emotional in there. We had Thunderstruck with AC/DC. We had Tom Jones in the dressing room. It was just extraordinary. And it's only now that's dawning me, after this monumental fight in which he rose like Lazarus in that last round, like The Undertaker now, boom, boom. We've all seen the videos, the music that had been put to it. He won the hearts and minds of America. He won the hearts and mind of American sports people. He did a mic drop after Whiskey and Rye at the Bye Bye American Pie, at the end of the press conference. There are people, they will be talking about that 12th round and this heavyweight title fight forever in boxing history. He deserved the victory. Sorry, Jeff.
I'll come back to the 12th round and the judging, but you've raised the point about... So Andy made the point that he thought that the utterances that have been...
Yeah, he was racist, homophobic, sexist, whatever it was at the time. I've said to him before myself, don't talk about religion and sexuality, Tyson. Talk about fighting. Be funny. You're just so entertaining. You're only going to upset people. That everyone who's on the fringes of any kind of extremism, where you talk about this, or you talk about religion, or very strong views, people are fighting for their rights in religion, sexuality, all those things. It's not the place of the heavyweight champion to do that. He knows that.
Well, the only counterpoint is that a couple of years ago, we had David Hay come out and use some pretty horrific language, and Kevin Kilbane actually talked about how hurtful that language was, and we had David Hay on the show, and David Hay went, "Yeah, look, I was completely wrong. It was I went away and I looked at myself and I look back at that and I think that's not my character. He was thoughtful about it, and and so here's the thing: people can respond to criticism, and actually, the worst thing isn't them saying it in the first place. The worst thing would them be continuing to believe what they believed and not bother to engage or change. So, I don't know if Tyson Fury has changed. I guess that's the bit where I wouldn't mind hearing him say, you know what?
Of course he's changed. He was 27 then. He's 30 now. We are not young men, okay? Let's be honest. We're not. No, we're mature. I'm going to be about to be a granddad in a week's time,
Congratulations.
Seriously, I am. We're not children, but we forget these huge athletes are growing up in their 20s. They say stupid things. We all say stupid things. Look at Dan Rowan the other day, reporting on the funeral of Vichai, the chairman of... people say stupid things on camera, off camera. Sometimes they're recorded. I think he's grown up. Everything was taken away from him. His sanity, in a sense, was taken away. His body was taken away. He didn't care anymore. And getting back on a happy train, loads of thousands of people reaching out to him saying, you have given me hope in my life, has made him more of a hero. You asked George Foreman, was it the belt? No, it was the people's adulation. Asked Muhammad Ali, was it the belts? No, it was the people's love of your achievements, the people's love of you. Tyson Fury will learn in time that the adoration he gets from fans isn't in the end. Yes, he's an incredibly brave fighter. He's incredibly talented. He's a freakishly skillful 6'9" tall boxer, 18.5 stone. In fact, I think I was calling him fragile before this fight. I wondered if he was too light. It sounds ridiculous now. More than anything, he's a great human being, and he's just shown that. So let's give him the credit for it. He's inspired loads of people.
To what extent has that battle, I wonder, kind of changed his worldview a lot? Because, as Ger says, I'm not kind of sure what sort of reformed character Tyson Fury is, but what I am sure of is that he's battled back from mental and emotional demons like none of us will ever experience in our life. So I wonder if that has changed his worldview in a very significant way.
I don't think he's a reformed character. I just think he's matured a little bit. I haven't noticed him be any different. Certainly not with me, anyway. But you can go in search of Luigi Pirandello, and read a playwright from Italy in the 20s, and his theories are that you've got as many personalities as people that meet you. Sorry to go deep. I know it's not psychology hour on Off the Ball at the moment, but, I've grown close to this guy, and I'm not joking. Everyone I meet who's been around him goes, oh my God, he's quite extraordinary, isn't he? He's a very gentle giant. When I went to shake his hand yesterday morning, I'm still on the West Coast, by the way, he said, don't squeeze my hand because my fingers are a bit damaged, yeah? He was worried about me squeezing his hand. He's one of us, if I can say that. He's just one of the boys, and he is a brilliant role model. He's become a brilliant role model, or an ambassador, as they're calling it, for people who can get over mental health. As he said, he's not a PR merchant, but I think he did a little BT Sport interview straight after the fight. I got up in that 12th round for all the people that have to get over what I've got over. If I can get up, you can get up. If I can get up after you've been hit like that with a left hand, you can get up. And it's brilliant, frankly. And one of the things that the kind of synergy of BBC Sports Personality of the Year in 2015, Owen, when he had beaten Klitschko, was there was a big campaign to get him off the list, and that kind of promulgated the myth that this was some guy who needed to reform his character. He's a traveller. They've got their own views. I think they are a section of society that don't get a fair shake at times. And I've got to say this as well. He was brilliant after the fight. When a controversial decision was read out, he told his brother and his brothers in the ring, everyone else around him, don't complain out loud here, because I don't want all the disappointed fans, 8,000 travellers that were there, and they were brilliantly behaved, to riot or get annoyed about this. And that was another sign of maturity as well, you know. And the travellers, the travellers from Ireland and England were absolutely brilliant out there. They were great fun. Of course, they drank, they sang, they were brilliant. And it was a great advert for them. And you know, unfortunately, I don't know if you want to ask about what I thought of the results, but maybe I'll let you do that.
Well, I guess 2 knockdowns is the bit where the maths comes into it. You can just about make a case for a fighter that has 2 knockdowns to make up.
You can make a case for a draw, Jeff.
Yeah.
You can make a case for a draw. I didn't. I scored it 2 10-8 rounds for Deontay Wilder and 1 other round. I could possibly have given him 1 other round, maybe the first, but I didn't see, other than that, he was outboxed. He missed and missed and missed. But people were split on press row. But they were largely, you know, I think Jeff Powell of the Mail had it for Wilder. Dan Raphael had it for Wilder. I didn't. I thought, in boxing terms, Fury was knocked down, horrifically knocked down the last time. In boxing terms, in boxing scoring, he won on points. You know, Wilder was beaten up in there as well. He ran out of ideas, you know. But it was a brilliant night. It was a brilliant event. And I'm afraid we've got a kind of heavyweight political chess match now and money match to see who fights who next.
Yeah, like that's an extremely intriguing part of this, which I'm sure we'll get to in just a moment. But just kind of one final question on Tyson Fury and the idea of his relationship with the result. Because I certainly got the sense, Gareth, before the fight that if he had beaten Deontay Wilder, that was sort of this big mountain achieved. He had come back from the literal brink of his life to get in incredible shape and to secure what to him would have been the biggest personal victory in his boxing career. There might have been a chance where he says, you know, I've got my work done here and walk away from the sport again. But now we don't know. And this draw makes Tyson Fury's career a very interesting one, where to the point where he's saying that he really wants to get back into the ring once again. And I wonder now, what is the single biggest thing motivating Tyson Fury? Like, you've mentioned the adulation of the fans, but I wonder if it's just a sense of happiness, the sense that he's a boxer again, the sense that he's kind of got back to a place where he's in a happy place as an athlete again. I wonder if that is the single biggest thing motivating him, that he just wants to continue on this golden path that he's been on for the last 6 or 8 months.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point, and I would add to that I think there's 2 things about the draw. The first thing is the draw will now keep him motivated. Yeah. In a sense, they won't agree with me, this team and him. In a sense, it was a win-win, because the draw will keep him motivated because he still wants that belt and he's still undefeated. But in another sense, you know how folk are. Most people believe, 90% I think the polls are saying, believe he won the fight. From those who can't score a fight and just watch it in the generality, and those who really can score a fight and who scored it for him. The PR for him, which he probably needed, is actually going to swing the other way in England, I think. That, look at him, he has turned his game around. He's done this incredible thing. He's lost all the weight. He's come back from depression. He's been a shining example. He's gone over there, underprepared, as Andy also said, Andy Lee just now, completely underprepared. That's why I had the caveat that he could win, but he's now battle sharpened. He wasn't then. So when he comes back to England or goes back to England, people are going to be on his side. He might well enter BBC Sports Personality of this year and really have a great time and do very well. But I do think it's a changing point for him. I don't think there's any question about him being motivated. He's told me over and over again that if he can work out pretty much every day for the rest of his life, he feels his depression won't come back. And he was the one, you can see the videos in the change room. Yes, they're public, but he was the one that's kind of saying to him, it's okay, don't anyone cry, we're fine here, you know. And, you know, he's just got to be around his family as it soaks in, because it will sink and soak in, and he'll be going, damn, I should have won that. Damn, if I hadn't been knocked down in that last round, if I'd just kept my hands up a bit more, because the body was fatiguing, I think. I don't think he's going anywhere soon. We've still got 3 undefeated heavyweight champions. A draw was so unlikely, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It was very unlikely. What happens next? What's the most likely, in terms of the most likely match that happens next? Is a rematch first, or what happens?
Well, I think there's 2 things. Eddie Hearn changing his tune in quite public comments in the Mail online, I think, today that was. And he's flown to LA. So there's your first sign, right? He's after Wilder for Joshua now. They know that Wilder is mainly, or in facing Fury, he's mainly a big right hand for most of the fight. That's all he's really got. And a bit of a, you know, he does jab a little bit. I always felt that Deontay Wilder would be dangerous for Anthony Joshua, and it would be a real shootout. But I think Joshua is a dangerous opponent for Wilder, but I think Wilder probably doesn't want to face Fury again next, because he's a much trickier opponent than Joshua, much trickier. Because Wilder firmly believed he was going to go in there and smash him out. He really did. So I think we may end up in this kind of weird menage a trois where they're all trying to get Joshua. But Fury can just sit out, find out those 2 fight. He'll fight the person with 4 belts then, you know, unless they draw, which can happen. So I think it's really all up in the air. There's supposed to be a rematch with Deontay Wilder, but I think it's his call. Frank Warren is going to speak to the WBC and appeal, saying because of Alexander Roshin's card, you know, where he gave the first 4 rounds to Wilder, that they should have a rematch by dint of it being poor scoring. But it'll play out in the next 5 or 6 weeks. There'll be loads of smoke and mirrors, as there always is, because it's a huge. Both fights are huge money fights, the biggest fights in the world.
Yeah, like, what have you heard in terms of how the 3 negotiating parties interact with one another from your sources over the last couple of weeks? Because Tyson Fury on Joe Rogan was saying that what we had heard from Anthony Joshua immediately after his last fight, that, you know, that his fight with Wilder had fallen down on the Wilder side, was nonsense. That Fury said actually it was Eddie Hearn and his negotiations that was a little bit too tough, and it was Joshua's side that was the kind of Jenga piece that was pulled out and the whole negotiation collapsed. Is that the truth? Who was actually at fault behind the idea of Wilder versus Joshua not happening before now?
Well, I mean, the absolute truth, we probably wouldn't find out even if we went into court. Do you know what I mean? Because they've all got their own arguments. They've all got their own... They're all speaking out of both sides of their mouths in a way, which is what happens. It's misinformation. It's information. Look, Frank Warren, and Tyson Fury have a very strong case to force the rematch with Deontay Wilder, because there's even the this is the most far out possibility. If Wilder refused to fight them, and he was ordered to by the WBC, and I'm just saying, this is the far out scenario. Hearn could even say to him, "Well, dump the belt. We'll pay you 20 million anyway to fight for the 3 belts." You know, so it's just how it comes down to now in a business transaction involving venue, money they're being paid. Obviously, there's athletic desire from all the athletes in this, but these are the end game fights for all 3 men in terms of either the championship or the life-changing money, the serious life-changing money. So,
is it beyond the bounds of possibility that somebody comes in and says, "Here's 150 million," and does a triumvirate? You will fight in this order, irrespective of who wins, and at the end, we'll say, is that surely we're at that point now where March, August, December next year, we know what the fights are going to be, and somebody puts up $500 million for that. Like, is this not where the whole point of DAZN and all those guys is?
Well, I mean, if DAZN put up $500 million for all, then they'd probably get it. But then it's based on subscription, not pay-per-view, isn't it? On the night, so but they have, look at the 365 million for Canelo Alvarez. Yeah, they could do a tournament where they all fight each other. They could bring one more in and do semis, and of course they could. Everything's possible. It's a very, very creative industry, but when you're looking at that, you've got 4 sets of promoters, or 3 sets of promoters, 4 TV companies, 3 different boxes, and the amount of egos there, and who deserves what, and who deserves what proportion. I mean, I think, given that Joshua's got 3 belts, he does deserve, against Deontay Wilder, clearly a 60-40 split, clearly, and it may just come down to what's the best business deal. It's very complex at this stage,
But that's the thing. If they push, I agree with you. He does deserve probably 60% of that pot, and we know that Eddie Hearn is an extremely tough negotiator. Like we saw in the Katie documentary, that he's going to get her every ounce of money. We now know that about him. But that could kind of work against Anthony Joshua. Like, everybody's talking about 2 heavyweights in the world right now. Of course, people who are big into their boxing still know that Anthony Joshua is looming large. But as you and Ger have been discussing earlier, this new heavyweight bout between Fury and Wilder has been the talk of the town in America. So say if we get 2 bouts in the next 4 months, one of them is Joshua against Dillian Whyte in April or whenever Wembley is booked for, and the other one is Fury against Wilder, a rematch. Well, I know which fight I'm more excited about. That means there's another 4 months where Anthony Joshua is perhaps playing third fiddle in terms of global profile in the heavyweight game, which is incredible to think.
It is. Listen, Dillian Whyte's got to beat Derek Chisora first on December the 22nd, remember? And, I love both those guys. They're great. They're terrific to work with. I mean, I had Chisora winning the first one by a round. It was so close, It could be Derek Chisora. And Fury's even said privately to me, like, I've got nothing to prove facing Chisora again, but if he earns the right, I'll fight him again. I mean, I think Hearn has said that the plan was that it would be Whyte, Chisora, or there's one other, I can't remember now who it was. Whyte, Chisora, might have even been Alexander Usyk to face Joshua next in April. I think that was mentioned, although Usyk really isn't ready. But at this stage, would Hearn put Anthony Joshua in with Tyson Fury in your minds, gents, given if he couldn't get Wilder to agree? Would he put him in with him?
Tyson Fury's a banana skin for any promoter right now if you're going up against him, right?
I don't think
he's more than a banana skin. I think he is more than that.
I don't think there's any way you're putting Joshua in with Fury until after you've got through the Wilder money. Like, you've got to get that cash first and then hope that you win that. But I'd say if you're Wilder, you're looking at Joshua now and going, well, okay, so I managed to at least fight Tyson Fury to a draw, which is my kryptonite. I will happily fight Anthony Joshua now and go, yeah, absolutely, you've got all the belts, of course I'll take them. So that's why I think the 40-60 split might be.
I agree with you. I think Wilder, will end up in it. That's what I do think will happen. I think Wilder will end up either signing, because Hearn's business, I reckon, will be to say to Wilder, we will guarantee you, this is what I think he'll do, and I think they'll try and force Fury, and not that I agree with this, Fury and Frank Warren out into the cold, and I think they'll say, look, let us fight Dillian Whyte in April, and we guarantee you fight, because, well, I think that could happen, and we'll fight you in November, and if Whyte wins, you get to fight Whyte in November,
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting. It's going to be an interesting couple of years. Hopefully, there's a couple of years left in all these fighters, irrespective of who they fight.
Can I just say, what we need, the reason why it's got interesting is Fury was, and this is why I like the guy, he was willing to come back and fight straight away. That's why we're having this conversation. Otherwise, he'd have been knocking out Molina again, or Gerard Washington, or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wilder would be. You've got to give Fury credit for saying, now I'm ready, I'm coming back, I'm going to fight the best. That is extraordinary. And to pull off what, this will be talked about, this moment in heavyweight boxing history will go down as one of the great moments. Boom, boom. You know, unbelievable.
Gareth, great stuff. We'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks for joining us.
Absolute pleasure, gents.
Safe home. It's Gareth A Davies joining us from the west coast of the US, where he's been covering the fight at the weekend. There has been now enough moments in the big fights between the big fighters to say that heavyweight boxing is back properly. Like, this is a golden age for heavyweight boxing. I mean, obviously, it is infested with problems and issues, and you have to take a lot of what Gareth says in good faith about Tyson Fury being a reformed character. I mean, I remain to be convinced of that, but I can absolutely hear why it matters so much. Gareth talks about his own depression, and I think that if you are somebody who has been through that, then seeing the recovery of somebody to come out to a point where they're able to do their job to the best of their ability again, it obviously is something that would be very alluring. Yeah,
what I find remarkable about Tyson Fury and his depression is just how self-aware he is of what causes him to get into a state of depression. That he knows exactly. Of course, he's been diagnosed by professionals, but it seems that he's self-diagnosed his process of recovery as well, that he knows exactly what's worked for him. Primarily, it's just the sheer thing of exercise. He says that just being in the gym, just working out, being physically active is something that's helped him. He's also mentioned the idea that money really sunk him into a hole as well. Now, obviously, he's given the majority of his latest stake away to homelessness charities, which is obviously a great cause. Holding on to that money, he might have thought as well would have been bad for himself. And, I'm not saying that was a factor behind it. I'm sure it was given away in good faith. But the way he speaks about depression is actually far more illuminating than most other people and quite a lot of professionals, in my opinion. So whatever you say about Tyson Fury, the whole idea of his mental health and the ambassador he has suddenly become for mental health is an undeniable factor about his character now.
Yeah, it's not a straightforward thing.
No.
You can't just automatically say this is great and away you go and we need to forget about all the stuff that you said.
And
the Nandrolone issue, boxing seems to not really care about drug testing and not really care about former fighters who have tested positive. And I guess that's on boxing. I wonder, part of me thinks that the best thing that would happen here is that Anthony Joshua loses to Deontay Wilder and Wilder has to fight Fury again, because then you have a beaten Joshua floating loose. You have Wilder with the belts. You've got Fury, who's probably, I think, going to beat Wilder if they fight again, and you just have this rolling situation where the champ is there to be got at the whole time. But you need Joshua to fight Wilder and I think kind of lose.
Yeah, it's true. Like when I was saying there a moment ago that I kind of see Joshua as the guy on the outside in terms of profile watching in on these two guys. I do think he's still kind of technically the best fighter, and when you look at record, that's probably true, but there is probably an element of kryptonite about Tyson Fury. I think definitely if Joshua goes down, it suddenly makes this three-way fight out for whatever it is, the top heavyweight in the world, a far more interesting spectacle.